Teachers unions across the region are engaging in tense contract negotiations, and in at least 3 districts, teachers have gone on strike. That's an illegal action in Massachusetts where public employees are barred from striking. Boston approved a new 3-year contract with the teachers union in the fall, but what are your thoughts on the recent teacher strikes?
You know, I think we need good, strong working labor relations. That is always what I think averts these things. I'm very proud of the relationship we have with our BTU. I'm thrilled that we were able to come to agreement on what I think was a really fair contract that applauded the hard work of our teachers, especially during the pandemic, or our educators, but that also looked forward in BPS to what is needed in terms of changes relative to special education and inclusion. You know, one of the most important partners I have at the table is our teachers union. And so I think for us, it's developing that relationship, cultivating it, heading issues off before they happen, and certainly in terms of labor contracts, just making sure that it's an open dialogue along the way and that you're striving for the most fair contract that you can. We need our teachers in front of our students. We see what happens when they're not. We saw what happened over the pandemic.
During the pandemic, sure. And in fact, during the State of the City address, Mayor Wu announced a major investment of $50 million on inclusion. BPS enrolls more special ed students on average than the state and the nation, and over-identifies Black and Latino male students as having a learning disability. Black males are 14% of the overall population, but 24% of the students enrolled in special education. And according to a recent report, Latino males are 21% of the student population, but 29% of special education students. So explain more, if you would, about why Black and Latino students are being identified as having disabilities at a higher rate.
So I think, you know, a lot of this comes down to making sure that we're doing a lot of the work on the ground level with our teachers in our tiered support system, so that students get the best supports they can when they're first beginning to struggle. When that does not happen, when a system our size doesn't have that type of structure in place, which we call an MTSS structure, and a strong student support, then you see over-identification where it's not needed. Or you see students being recommended for what we call more restrictive environments than what they need. The promise of inclusion is to really change the mindset of the district and the experience of the district. It's to value all of our students. And so having our special education students having the ability to be in the least restrictive environment in whatever school of their choosing, with the correct supports and alongside their regular education peers. This is what we know from research base is going to increase the level of achievement for all. And
you know, I don't have to tell you, once Black and Latino males get tracked into special education, it's almost impossible for them to get out of that.
That is right. And that is, you know, there's lots of increase in prison pipeline data as well. Lack of opportunity for our Black and brown males and Black and brown females as well. So this for us was landmark in terms of changing the contract, working with our teacher union as a partner in this, and we're beginning the rollout of inclusion with the first 22 schools in the cohort. So we're very excited about that through the budget process. Clearly, Mayor Wu's historical commitment of $50 million to support this initiative could not happen without her.
How do you plan to measure results?
Oh, lots of different ways. I mean, I think academically, everything has to be framed about student outcome. That is one of the big switches to our system right now. And on the academic side, this will be a series of academic measures that are way beyond just state test scores. We have to be looking at the organic data that we're collecting on a daily basis in the form and meeting those performance measures. So every educator has a role in this. You know, everybody has an accountability.
Lots of benchmarks along the way.
Lots of benchmarks, you know, in addition to just, it's not even just counting the number of students, it's the quality of experience. That's what we have to begin to do, is really talk to children, talk to parents about what is their experience in the system.
And keeping them engaged and excited about coming to school. You're credited with a decrease in students dropping out of school when you took over as superintendent in Somerville. What are some of those successes that you're going to bring to Boston to keep young people engaged?
So I have always felt, I think from my middle and high school teaching and certainly principalship, with Tech Boston and then as superintendent in Somerville, that dropout is really a reflection of the system, not the student. And so when you have a student drop out, that's our failure. That's something we have to own accountability for, and we have to decide what we didn't do for that student or that family. So I think, we're doing a big re-engagement campaign right now, which is similar to what we did in Somerville, to be able to get students back in, develop out educational options to meet students where they are, not where we think they should be. Surround that with lots of out-of-school opportunities for students, real job and applicable skill that they can go apply. They learn to resume build, they learn to do interviews, they do workforce development, so that in addition to their learning, they're also seeing how they apply that learning.
Yeah.
And for many of our students that are off track, or what we call kind of timed out, dropped out, those are students that really benefit from that workforce development model and having different kinds of educational options.
Give them some other reasons to come to school.
Exactly.
Yeah. Improving transportation, listed on the state's systemic improvement plan. Several issues, of course, were noted in a recent evaluation of the system, including different start times. What are some of the solutions to the transportation problem?
So I think we're working very hard on operational efficiencies, certainly on the contract that we have with our bus drivers and our bus monitors. These, we've started our own CDL program to be able to increase the number of bus drivers we have. Some of the things that are what we call adaptive or really have to be worked toward has to do with the tiering. One of the things Council of Great City Schools pointed out was that of large urban districts like ours is one of the most complex from a transportation standpoint. When you layer in we're the fourth most congested city for traffic, when you layer in that we also have the unique responsibility of transporting charter school students as well as private school students. We transport 22,000 students across the city at all times of day, from very early morning, starting 6 a.m., all the way into the evening with athletics. That's quite a system. It's a very robust system. And so we are beginning to have conversations with our charter partners and our private school partners and our own internal conversations about aligning the tiers. And that is, right now we have congestion at 8:30. If you try driving in the city at 8:30, you don't get very far.
No, you don't. No.
So we need to start spreading those out. But that needs a family process, a family engagement process, sometimes just a shift of 10 minutes.
Let's talk about family engagement. A recent survey released by Massing Polling found that only 32% of parents said they were very satisfied overall with the BPS. That's down 10 percentage points from last year. Black parents who took the survey reported the lowest level of satisfaction, with only 19% being very satisfied. How are you going to get parents re-engaged?
So this was one of the things I spoke about the most, I think, was that in my interviews, I heard loud and clear from parents that the experience they're looking for, what they're hoping in the public school system, isn't there. And so I think it's much like we would want as a parent. It's communication and responsiveness. It's systems that are work and efficient. It's having schools that they feel are safe, and they feel that if their student goes to, they belong, they're seen, they're respected, they're identified. And in addition, that they're getting a world-class education. And this, with the Green New Deal, I think is going to be one of the things I heard parents talk a lot about, which was facilities. Having students in facilities where they don't have gyms, they don't have an auditorium, they have old windows or old building.
So make those schools community centers, places that kids want to go, places where the parents want to be as well.
That's right. So we have a big initiative right now of hub schools, which is to make our schools community schools. And so that, along with the Green New Deal, which is a $2 billion injection that Mayor Wu and the city have committed to, these are the things that I believe, in addition to us improving the academic performance of BPS, increasing out-of-school time opportunities for our students, these are the things parents want.
So much to talk about. When we come back, we're going to do something called 5 Words or Less.
Okay.
Okay?
Sounds great.
We'll be right back.